Oh, they already got me up. Thank you so much. Okay. So, what do you see? Talk to me. This will be not a sermon, but more like a Sabbath school discussion. What do you see? Up on the screen. Yes. You see children inside of what seems to be supposedly adults. Okay, and what are their positions? What do you see in terms of the positions? Yes. Okay, so you see who's connecting and who's disconnected. Okay, you see the children in the image trying to connect, and you see the adults in what pose? Okay. So it's so interesting as we think about how every cell in our bodies, if you would do me a favor this morning and just hold your hand out in front of yourself. Hold your hand in front of your face for just a second. And I want you to just realize that every cell in your hand was genetically wired by our amazing Creator to connect. Every cell in your body. We're looking at the hand, and every cell in our hand was wired by God to connect. So much so that when we connect, and if you have your loved one next to you, just grab them by the hand for just a second for the sake of this little experiment, if you will. When we connect by simple hand holding, did you know there are physiological changes in your body and in the person whose hand you're holding? Blood pressure goes down for all of you on blood pressure medication. Blood pressure goes down. Heart rate goes down. Your immune system is strengthened, so you won't get as many colds and flus, although I think out here in Florida, no one gets sick is what they tell me, right? With all this sunshine and all. So science has begun to corroborate the reality that when we connect human to human, our body experiences health and healing, which would be, you can imagine, if connecting literally has an effect on our blood vessels. Instead of constricting, there was a study done, and I don't think I brought that particular quote with me this weekend, but this doctor, I think it's Dr. Lynch and his team, so they were doing a test where they were showing the reaction of our blood vessels, arteries and veins. And when, I think after maybe 3 or 4 minutes of watching Saving Private Ryan, our blood vessels are constricted. But when we connect and when there's harmony, there is healing that takes place in our bodies at the cellular level. Pretty amazing. Really quick, these are our 2 sons. Jay, you haven't seen them for a while, but these are our 2 babies. Let's read this verse together this morning. Therefore, together, therefore, oh, I didn't switch it, sorry. That's why you're not reading with me. I'm like, I can't hear you. Okay. Genesis 2:24, together. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. There's a dilemma that we're going to talk about this morning. Dilemma number 1 is, if you are not emotionally connected with your spouse, I mean, you live together, you live under the same roof, you may share a bank account, you eat out of the same refrigerator, you might even sleep in the same bedroom. But if you're not emotionally connected to your spouse, Because we were created and designed to live in connection, we will connect to something or someone else. So what are some of these things? We'll connect to anything. But we will live in connection. It just won't be with the right thing or person. So what do you see up here on this image? What do you see, family? Baby. What else are you focusing on as you see the baby picture? What else do you see? You see a belly button. Very good. What else do you see? Snuggly. Yes, he or she looks very comfortable. Yes. What else do you see? He or she is sleeping. I didn't hear back there. Cuteness. Is that what you said? You're so right. You just want to go like, oh, yeah, very cute. But you mentioned the belly button up here. And that is what we want to just mention a little bit. Because it's interesting, belly buttons and all. Belly buttons are an interesting thing. How many of you, as you're cooking up something and you're cutting up maybe some onions and garlic, I don't know how you cook, but I pretty much chop up onions and garlic on pretty much everything I cook. And you cut your finger. Very typical. Especially if you've sharpened your knives. And how many days does it take for that little cut to heal, in your case? How long does it take for you to heal? Okay, 4 days-ish, yeah. It kind of varies on the quality and health of your blood. If you have a little sugar in your blood, it'll take a little more days to heal. But if you have pretty healthy blood, your little knife cut is going to heal in 3, 4, or 5 days. And typically, I've cut myself so many times on my fingers in cooking, and I just have nothing to show for it. But it's interesting how God left a little monument right about smack middle of your body. And I'm going to challenge you to think about why, instead of that little belly button just kind of closing up and leaving a minimal scar the way our finger cuts do, what are some hypotheses as to why God left this monument, our belly button? And I ask you this morning, could it be that there's another reason other than having an orifice to have to clean out once in a while? Why else do you think we have this little monument there that didn't just zip, clean up the way our finger cuts do? Well, my husband and I have a hypothesis. We can't prove this. This is just our thoughts. We think God doesn't want us to forget. He wants there to be a monument every time you take a shower that reminds you that we were all once in serious connection with our mothers through our umbilical cords. But beyond that, to remind us that we were wired and constructed to live connected, that we might not forget for 1 second that living out of connection, and when we'll be talking about wired to connect all weekend or all today, Sabbath, and we'll be talking about the vertical connection, which is our primary connection, because without connecting to the source of love, we have a real hard time connecting to our human counterparts. What would we call you? Partners, and or anybody for that matter, not just spouses, but yeah, anybody. So we believe that emotional connection is not optional because God wired us for connection. There's a second dilemma. There's a sense of starvation in our nation, in our culture, in our homes, in our churches, in our neighborhoods for connection. Why is that a dilemma? Well, it can be a dilemma, especially if you are one of the growing number of people that are going through life, living in families, living in marriages, but feeling quite lonely. So if you feel lonely this morning or know someone who does, you are not alone, nor are they. The latest studies done in I'm going to say the last couple of years have been showing a pretty consistent rate of about 50% of people that are polled for these loneliness studies have been reporting moderate to severe loneliness. But just a few months ago, December to be specific, December of this last 2018, and maybe before going to that exam, I'll jump back to that. So public health officials are calling the phenomenon that we're living right now the loneliness epidemic. It's bringing negative side effects that are causing psychological, but maybe most importantly, physiological illness to our culture. Besides feeling isolated, people experiencing moderate to intensive loneliness are more apt to have the following symptoms: sleep disorders, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, a compromised immune system, and inflammation, which covers a whole gamut, right? You can have joint inflammation, cellular inflammation, intestinal inflammation, inflammation. Now, the most recent study that just came out in the International Psychogeriatric magazine shows that instead of the rate being 50%, which is kind of what we've been quoting for the last few years, like I mentioned earlier, this study showed 75% of the sample. And why I'm going to make a big deal about this is because this study was done at the School of Medicine at UC San Diego. They asked 340 people from the ages of 27 to 101 about feeling isolated. This study showed that over their lifetime, both men and women experience moderate to severe isolation. However, the most intense loneliness occurs during the late 20s. Anybody here in your late 20s this morning? Excellent. Those are the intense seasons. How about mid-50s? Anyone here in the mid-50s? My husband and I qualify for that. And we don't have to say it, but I just did. And then the late 80s. These are the kind of the pockets of time where they notice that people tend to report the highest levels of moderate to severe loneliness. And it's valuable to mention these are not, well, and here I'm going to explain it, because you're probably thinking, well, what kind of 340 people did this study poll? Well, specifically, these 340 people between the ages of 27 and 101 had already participated in one of 3 earlier studies of aging and mental health. Persons with serious physical or psychological ailments, including dementia, were excluded. They're not part of the study. Nor were people living in nursing homes or requiring substantial living assistance, because we would assume that this category of people are going to be lonely, so they're not part of the study. The lead researcher, Dr. Jesty, says the following: this is noteworthy because the participants in the study were not considered to be at high risk for severe loneliness. They didn't have major physical disorders, nor did they suffer from significant mental illness such as depression or schizophrenia, in which you might expect loneliness to be problematic. Though there were clear demographic limitations to the group, these participants were, generally speaking, regular people like you and I. On a more positive note, and we'll come back to this throughout the day, the same study noted a strong inverse relationship between loneliness and wisdom. And there's actually a wisdom scale that they used for this particular study. And a researcher says, in her words, this may be due to the fact that behaviors which define wisdom, such as empathy, compassion, emotional regulation, which is the ability to regulate my own emotions. Another way of saying this would be someone with high emotional intelligence. The ability to self-reflect, to kind of look back at the end of the day and be able to say, man, I really messed up when I snapped back at my husband when he was trying to be nice. So the ability to be able to reflect on our own behavior is what is part of what they're calling wisdom. And then we'll see what the Word of God says about wisdom. So having these characteristics, empathy, compassion, emotional regulation, and self-reflection, effectively counter or prevent serious loneliness. Isn't that cool? So why are we talking about loneliness? Well, we know we're in the middle of a war, do we not? The great controversy between God, our Creator, and a fallen angel who wanted to have Jesus' position and therefore has set out to mar and destroy the loving character of God. And I would imagine that as our enemy sees the research done on loneliness and how many lonely people there are living with people, married people, lonely children living at home with mom and dad, or with mom or with dad, but still lonely. We can see that this is a part of the enemy attack, because we will see that being lonely destroys literally down the human body. So Adam had the need to feel connected, did he not? Adam had the need. It's interesting because some people will say, well, I have God. And we do have God. And that must be our primary connection without a doubt. But it's interesting that Adam, as he walked and talked with God, the ultimate source of ultimate love, still had a need to connect with someone like him. We were indeed created with a need for emotional connection. So we all, from our earliest years through the developmental stages of growth and maturity, continue to have a need. We wonder, we continue asking these questions. Do you love me? We wonder. You sleep next to me, you eat my food, I wash your clothes, but do you love me? Are you accessible to me? Do I matter to you? Will you come when I call you? Am I valued and accepted at a deep level by you? We don't outgrow our need to be emotionally connected. Read this out with me, which is found in the book written by Dr. Sue Johnson, Hold Me Tight, highly recommended if you're looking for a great book. She is the author, the designer of emotional EFT, emotionally focused therapy, a wonderful Christian lady. But read the thought with me. This need to be held and to be soothed. Are the letters too small for you up there? Yeah, huh? I didn't get those bigger. So if you can follow me, read it, and otherwise I'll continue. So this need to be held and to be soothed while staying in the loving arms of another goes from the cradle to the grave. Like a baby, we are all born with this vulnerability that does not go away. One of the real issues of your most meaningful love relationships is how you deal with this kind of vulnerability. Do you deal with your vulnerability in a way that helps you pull people close to you, or do you push people away? We need to feel precious to another. all through our lives. And some of us, we'll talk more about this morning and this afternoon, depending on the events in our childhood, the first half of our life, but especially the first 7 to 10 years, feel uncomfortable feeling a need to be connected. We see it as a weakness, like I don't want to need anyone. I don't want to depend on someone else to make me feel loved and accepted. And so we can go through life depending on what happened over here, pushing away the emotional connection and love and affection that we most desperately need now for matters of life or death. Because we're learning that disconnection causes illness in the body. Connection actually creates health and healing in our physical bodies. Testimonies, Volume 5 says the following. We're talking about connection, right? So now we're going to have a little warning to connection. God gave me a message of warning to stay the incoming evil. There was too great familiarity between some men and women. So we started by saying if you're not emotionally connected to the source of genuine love, which is God, love, and which gives us the gas, the love, the power, the humility, the patience, the grace, the forgiveness to be able to reach out and connect to my spouse who is every bit of a sinner. I need your hand, baby. No less of a sinner than I am. By the way, what is a Christian marriage anyway? You know what a Christian marriage is? 2 sinners that fall in love and get married. That's what a Christian marriage is. 2 sinners trying to do the best they can to love each other the way Jesus loves the church. Wives, we do the best we can to love and respect our husbands the way the word says. Husbands hopefully trying to do their best to love on their wives the way Jesus loves on his church. And that's what a Christian marriage is. 2 sinners trying to do marriage in the middle of a cosmic war. Right in the middle of the great controversy war. That's what a Christian marriage is. What a challenge. Dilemma number 3. Because we are emotionally fragmented due to sin, thank you, Grandma and Grandpa, Adam and Eve, we are all fragmented emotionally due to sin. We do not discriminate the sources of our connections, do we? In fact, honey, I think I'm going to mention it right here. Just last week, maybe last week it was, my husband got a phone call. This happened, this is so far away. We only talk about things that happen very far away from where we are. Very far away from here. He receives a call from a pastor that's saying, you know, I have this dilemma. I have this amazing professional, dentist, and another member of my church, and she's an amazing school psychologist. And they decided to barter services where she would see his son for psychological testing for free, and he would work on her teeth. The kind of bartered services. And of course, the enemy got involved there, and bartering of services got a little romantic. And there they are. One of the wives found out, and she's up in arms. And here you have the typical case of when we're not connected vertically and we're not able to connect horizontally to our spouse, we will connect to something, food, exercise, work, even over church work, just any kind of anything, the wrong people, because we're not connected to the right connections, to the ones that actually bring healing and wholeness to not just yourself and body, but to your family system. So, We have the typical alternatives that Satan offers to us. And I'm going to quickly go over that one. Dilemma number 4. The greater our disconnection, the greater our pain. The greater our pain, the deeper our need to what? To self-medicate. And we are living in a culture of self-medication, are we not? I don't think Florida, you guys haven't legalized pot yet, have you? Have you? You're trying to? Well, in Washington State, it's totally legal, so we have all the pot stores all over the place. And in essence, you just have a very, very self-medicated culture.
Going to these stores are people beyond 50 and up.
Well, that's a good point, that it's not just the kids, self-medicating, but you see a lot of over 40, 50s, yeah. Us baby boomers hitting up the self-medication as well, yeah. Dilemma 5, the closer the relationship, this is a good one. If you've kind of been zoning out a little bit, zone back in for just a second. Maybe we had a big breakfast like my husband and I did. Listen to what this says. Interesting. The closer and more connected the relationship, the less what? If you don't believe me, if you have your spouse next to you, touch nose to nose for just a second. Nose to nose. What just happened to your vision? Keep your eyes open. What just happened to your vision? You immediately got double vision, did you not? Guess what? When you have double vision, you don't see defects. Okay? So the closer emotionally you are, the better your spouse looks. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, try doing the opposite. Stand back a little bit. This is a fact. The less emotionally connected, the more distance and disconnection there is, emotional and sometimes physical, the easier it is to see the faults and defects in each other. No wonder we are encouraged to be one. Double visioned, if you will. Emotionally disconnected marriages are becoming the norm. We come to church, same church. If you're lucky, in the same car, but often in different cars. We mentioned it's the same roof, but there's no connection. We're feeling, so many marriages are experiencing deep loneliness, lots of pain, lots of conflict, verbal, emotional, mental abuse, because the farther we are from each other, there will be more conflict. We are living in silos. The number one predictor of divorce is not finances, nor is it the in-laws that get all the blame. It's the habitual avoidance of conflict. We all have an enemy, and he only comes to do 3 things in our lives. Do not be deceived. He can oftentimes present us with very beautifully packaged gifts. But we mustn't forget that the enemy of love, of the kingdom of love, the enemy of family, the enemy of marriage, the enemy of health, comes to do 3 things in our lives, and that is to kill, to steal, to kill, and to destroy. To destroy the connection that's vertical, which means that if I'm not connected vertically to the source of love, there is no way I'm going to be able to stay connected horizontally to the equally center of a spouse that I married. There's no way. There's no way I'll be able to do that. And we'll go back to the original picture, which is a sculpture from The Burning Man, the sculpture of 2 adults after a disagreement. sitting with their backs each to each other. Yet the inner child in both of them, I'm going to say the sensibility of the spirit in them, simply wants and needs to connect. Age has many beautiful gifts, but one we could live without is the pride and the resentment we hold on to when we have conflicts with each other. The forgiving, free spirit of children is what God intends for us to never let go of. Remember this picture the next time you're feeling particularly prideful or stubborn. Did you know that you are hated by the enemy? You are despised by the enemy as children of God. The enemy hates you for 4 reasons. He hates you because you were created in the image of God, according to Genesis 1. He hates us because we were created with honor and glory, according to Psalms 8, 4-6. He hates us this morning because we were created to love, according to John 15, 17. And he hates us because we are blessed by our Creator and Redeemer. And that really gets his... When we love, he hates us. When we hate, we become his buddies. And I don't call them Santa's helper. We become Satan's little helpers. Barriers to emotional connection as we get ready to wind down. Why is it so hard to remain connected to the sinner we married? Because I'm the sinner he married. Unresolved offenses that result in hurt and wounds. We don't take care of business. We let things go. We've fought about this issue for years and years and years and years, and it never gets resolved. So we just say, let's just not talk about it. But the issue is still there, festering. And there's 1,001 ways that issue gets triggered on a daily basis. Oh yeah. Pride. Did you find the thought that you said you were looking for last night or this morning? Okay, we have so much stuff and I'm going to paraphrase it. So my favorite author, who you've probably guessed is Ellen White, but she says, we could resolve, if it weren't for our pride, we could resolve pretty much any major issue in 5 minutes. Think about that. Chew, salivate, let it go down slow. If it weren't for pride, and boy, we could talk about pride this morning. We could get real transparent, huh, honey? Because we were doing a lot of that pride thing the first years of our marriage, especially. We have fun. Yeah, pride is vicious. Pride is noxious. Pride is toxic. Pride is at the root of the rebellion in heaven and why we're living out our marriages and families in the middle of a great cosmic war. It's pride. And every time I embrace my pride and my right to feel hurt and offended, I am worshiping at the shrine of the originator of pride. Unsurrendered ego, my sin, my spouse's sin. These are all the reasons why living on this planet, trying to do marriage post-fall, after the fall of Adam and Eve, is not for cowards. I'll tell you that. Read along with me what Paul wrote, his golden words, looking carefully together. Looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble. And by this, many become defiled. Do you know that when we have these unresolved issues with our spouses or anyone else, in case you're not married this morning, it could be with your boss, with your parents, with your boyfriend or girlfriend, doesn't matter who. But when we cling to our bitterness, bitterness cannot be contained in my heart. It will spill over. It will seep out and destroy the people in my circle of influence. Did you know that? And that includes our church body, of course. By the way, we like to say, if every Sabbath morning, you know how we go through the airports and there's a little meter, if you've got metal on. Imagine Pastor Jay, and thank you, Pastor Jay, for inviting us to your church family. We love and adore you and Tiffany. And, we adore God. We love them to death. How's that? Yeah. And we knew you, way before you became a husband. That's right. We loved you way back when. But anyway, Pastor Jay, imagine if there were a pride meter at the front door of your church. No, sorry. I didn't mean pride. Bitterness, which is, pride is in there, but that's another whole story. It's all mixed in there, but we're going to speak specifically about bitterness. A bitterness meter that if you walk through, and you've got to walk back out. They got to figure out where you can't come in. How many people would have been able to make it in this morning? God would have made it in. I heard someone say, you're right. God would be sitting right here. And all his little angels, big angels. We'll end this morning by reading the following together. And we will continue throughout this day to go through the layers of what is and what God desires it to look like, and how we can get there, despite being sinners, trying to live out love in a broken world. Let's read this together. If you persist, I can't hear you. Is it up there? Okay. If you persist in stuffing your hurt and anger, it will affect you negatively in mind, body, and spirit. Your outlook on life will tarnish. Your hope for deeper happiness in marriage will fade. And you will be more susceptible to illness. Unresolved anger evolves into bitterness and resentment. You see the world through distorted lenses. You become hardened and withdrawn, developing physical symptoms such as headaches, muscle aches, colitis, ulcers, compulsive behaviors, and scores of other problems. In the process, you pull away from your spouse and tumble toward the precipice of emotional and physical divorce. We will end with this thought. Child Guidance, page 164. Our first duty to God, together, and our fellow beings is in self-development. Second duty? Third duty? Is it our fourth duty? First duty. My first duty isn't trying to fix him. It's allowing God to fix me. Let's continue. Let's start again. Our first duty to God and to our fellow beings is in self-development. Every faculty with which the Creator has endowed us should be cultivated to the highest degree of perfection. We're talking about human perfection. That we may be able to do what? The greatest amount of good of which we are capable. What, honey? We are what? We're capable? Wait, we're capable of doing a great amount of good? Are we? Are you? Did you know that? A great amount of good in your house first. We always say home first. You can't just come to church and do all kinds of good things. If you've got some lonely, starving, disconnected people back at home, with Pastor Jay's permission, I'm going to say run from church, go back home, and go love on your family. Go connect and do loving things over there. And from the outflow of having you and your spouse so full of joy because you're living what you're supposed to be living, then come out and share some of that. In order, about the middle of the paragraph, in order to purify and refine our characters. Oh, we need the grace given us of Christ that will enable us to see and correct not my spouse. I can't fix the pastor. I can't fix the elders. I can't fix my kids. I can't do any of that. But we are told here, we need the grace given us of Christ that will enable us to see and correct our deficiencies and improve that which is excellent in our characters. We have good and we have bad. We have to surrender what isn't like Jesus, and we have to grow and develop those things in us that are kind of like Jesus and say, grow me, grow more of this. I need more of this. Friends, and my new family, it is my prayer that we will not close, but rather leave our hearts open to continue listening to what the Spirit wants to whisper to each of us throughout the rest of this day. Would you stand with me for prayer? Father, we are your children this morning that have stood up and raised our hearts to you, praise and worship this morning. You know very well the condition of our thoughts, the condition of our hearts, the condition of our relationships. You know it all. Would you please continue deploying your Holy Spirit over this congregation this day as you continue to lead us to your truth, to your light, which will result in health and healing of mind, of heart, and of our whole being. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.